Aaron, my friend, welcome to the Campfire, brother.
It's great to be here, Mike. It's great to be here.
I appreciate it. I love getting the opportunity to sit down and talk all kinds of things that are mindset based and, in order to really pull from your journey and make somebody else find some inspiration to continue theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm out here
So,
trying to do, man.
so let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about your background, about your journey.
Yeah, so it started 12 years ago. Well, it'll be August will be 12 years. I had a 5-month-old pass away in a tragic accident where my ex-wife thought she had dropped him off at daycare, but had not, and he ended up passing away in a heat stroke. So it was pretty, I go to work one day and everything's normal, and I leave, and it's we'll never be the same come about 2 o'clock. And from there, I did. I had a bunch of medication and shoulders up therapy, if you will, where I just did EMDR. I did TMS, which is the magnetic stimulation, where it taps on your brain. It's a certain type of therapy. Then I had probably around 150 hours on the couch talk therapy, and I still was in a bad place. I got off all the medications, which were really clouding my head, and from there, I went into my ex-wife and I started our divorce process is about the seventh year, and that's when I really got into um, dealing with more of the physical and spiritual part. And being agnostic, I'm spirituality. I intertwine spirituality with religion, and that was inappropriate for me to do. And since then, and that's where I think you and I and your listeners, I think, link up, will be in this nature piece. And that's where I found my spirituality and the connection with nature. All the things that line up. Sure, there's things that don't line up, but all the things that have to line up for all that is happening. I mean, just sitting around the campfire, with the trees and the things going on underneath the earth and all that. So the spiritual and physical journey really kicked off, man. And that's what really brought it all together. So the three pieces: mental, physical, and spiritual. And in doing now all those things, I went from a place of just wrought with anxiety and depression, sadness, to a place where I'm now emerging in a happy state and excited about the next chapters and knowing that there's a lot more to life and not being stuck. And as I came out the other side of it, I got my general contractor's license, residential license where I could build houses. And that's what I've been doing since I left the job I had with the government when he passed away. And I just decided I didn't like it. The residential contractor part was a field I don't want to be part of, but um, it taught me I could do whatever I wanted, and that's where I ended up saying, what really would help me heal, and it would be a win-win, is if I could help other men just deal with mental health stuff. Obviously I've dealt with some heavy mental health stuff. I haven't dealt with all of them. I haven't, for instance, been to war, or my parents haven't passed away. I haven't lost a sibling. So there's lots of things I haven't gone through, but I've gone through something really tough. So I feel like sharing it, sharing the journey I went on, sharing the things I used to heal could be a win for a lot of people. And it's not the only way to heal, but it is a way to heal. So that's what I'm out here trying to do, man.
No, you know what? I can relate to that 110%. I mean, we all go through those difficult, challenging moments of life that make us look at what we're doing and why we're doing it. And when we hit those moments, you got the option to either turn away from life or embrace it. And that's one of the things I think we both have found the strength to be able to do
Mm.
is embrace the journey. And not only embrace the journey, but use the struggles and even the celebration points that come along it to help build an understanding for other men, women, whoever in this
Mm.
community that can utilize it, and that's a really really beautiful thing.
Absolutely, man. I agree 100%. Trying to turn tragedy into a kind of a triumph of sorts, what I often say, Mike, is it really sucks being lay down depressed, or really depressed at all, and having anxiety all the time, always worried about things. The world kind of shrinks in on top of you, and that's hard. Like it's hard and it sucks. it's also hard to come up out of it. But man, there's so much bright stuff on the other side of that. And we know what the depression and anxiety gets us. And so trying to turn that into a triumphant thing, because the bad stuff isn't going to go away. We're gonna have bad things happen to us in life. And they suck. And I wish they wouldn't. And if we had a time machine, then I would change some of the things I'm saying. We don't have that. So perspective and appreciation and gratitude has to be part of our journey. So yeah, man, totally turn it around. Post traumatic positive is a real thing, and I've experienced it.
It's weird because I kind of look back at the journey at different points where I'm like, if I could have just done that one thing differently, it all would have been completely different. And I probably wouldn't carry some of the regret that I've had to deal with along the way. But then when you get through it, and this is like the really motivational part of that being stuck in that moment and hearing somebody reflect on it, is once you get through it, when you look back on it, you realize that each of those things are no different than the timber that's sitting in this fire right now. That flame, that energy that's within all of our hearts. It never truly dies down or extinguishes. And even in its lowest points, it's still looking for material around us to consume in order to burn brighter and burn stronger and hotter. And that's what those moments of pain truly represent. They represent the timber that's sitting in front of me right now.
Mm.
The flame's starting to climb up around it, starting to build back up. But there's times where that flame gets real low. And being able to listen to somebody talk about their experiences with it, it's so powerful because it becomes that launching point for the person that's listening and trying to dig their way out.
Yeah, totally, man. I uh I remember how bad that sucked, dude. And that's what I'm saying. I want to make sure that people know when I'm talking that what I'm talking about is some hard stuff. It takes hard work. It takes discipline. It takes changing a lot of thoughts and thought processes that we've had, um, looking at your core beliefs and where they came from and really kind of challenging some things, just so that you can be aware. Everything's got to be on the table, right? When shit's not going good, sorry, uh, when stuff's not going good, we're we don't really like to look in the mirror and say why aren't things going good? We like to look for everything else. And I feel like with trauma, any traumatic event, and I mean it can be a divorce, loss of an animal, custody issues, all kinds of different issues out there that really rock our worlds. If we can, after we go through the pain and suffering portion, if we can really seek out to say, all right, let's put everything on the table. Let's look at everything in my life. I've got this really hard thing I've got to get over. Let me get over the other stuff too. And I had other things from my childhood, being raised, I didn't have a father in the home, and that really dictated a lot of my beliefs and who I was. I'm sure you know what I mean when I say beliefs, core beliefs. I'm not talking about other type beliefs, but how I really see the world, the lens that I see the world in, and it was so affected by those things. And so going through the trauma of losing Joel, I was able to stop and just be like, well, everything's already totally foobar, right? Like it's done, and it's all burned up around me. And so I'm just standing here in these ashes. And to be able to look at, and I understand people listening who are at rock bottom, um, it's hard to hear these things, but that's why I'm saying them, because it's so relatable, I think, to anybody. The extreme nature of losing a child, and I don't do it to brag in any way or boast in any way. As you know, I would not. I don't want this title of being the father of a child who's gone. Um, but it is a platform I can use to say, hey, I've been through something really hard, and I can give you hope that if you can just change the way you're looking at it and look at it as an opportunity to rebuild like the best version of you, and you can shake off, like you were talking about. We have things, sure, we've all got things we regret doing, man, and we probably shouldn't have done a lot of them, and we might have even known better. And you go on, but that was yesterday, and today is the day. And if we can set tomorrow up for success, then we've really done our job for today. And learn from our mistakes, which I know you said, like learn from that stuff, and then have a perspective. Well, I'm glad I went through that because I learned. so much, and that's how I look at losing Joel now. He's going to be gone either way I look at it. So I can look at it as the awful tragedy that it is, or I can look at it for how it really changed my life. And I'm a completely different human being than I was 12 years ago, bro. Like I'm not just happier than where I am, but I'm more guided. And I don't say that in a woo-woo way. I say it in I really have now identified what makes me happy. I saw how short life can be. I mean, when everything's normal and then it's not normal, like hours later, not, not a slow burn, but just a bam, completely different. It's so jarring, and it's I say it's a taste of mortality, when we deal with you look to be about the same age. I'm probably got a couple years on you, but our parents are getting older, right? And they start seeing their mortality and start appreciating life for every hour, right? They don't just look at this is going to be a good month or this is going to be a good year. This is going to be a good hour. And they need because they know it's coming down. Like they're on a clock. And so few of us have really brushed death or even come that in close contact with death where you're like, or even if you have, you don't stop to appreciate shit, man. I need to take an opportunity to be like, this is a really special gift I have this life, and I need to take advantage of it. And once we decide that we're going to stay in the fight and we're going to keep plowing forward, then it's time to check off all these give ups and all that stuff and just say, man, I'm going to plow whatever it takes. I'm going to plow to do the best I can, to be the best I can for the people I love, and hopefully for the person in the mirror too. That that's the bottom line. I think if we can get to where we really love ourselves, and I don't mean in a I'm a tough guy, I'm a bad, I can do whatever I want, not that kind of way, but in a way of I really love this dude, man. Like I want him to be happy so that when his kids see him, they see a happy human being and a happy father. And when his mom sees him, she's like, man, my son really is happy. And I think the conversation gets so caught up in money so often, um, because we don't have money. I don't have a bunch of money, and that's not it. If you would have given me a bunch of money 5 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you how happy I am. And I could say that almost as a fact. And it's not that money can't solve problems that those of us who are unhappy have. It's that they don't solve the problem that is the core of the unhappiness, which is probably the core of the money issue in the first place. And so when all that gets convoluted, we don't even know what we're looking at, bro. We're like, anyway, I don't even know what I'm looking at. So a basic fundamental breakdown of oneself, and that's what I was saying about when we get to a traumatic event, we get like a reset. We get an opportunity to really reset our lives and check all the things off that we don't like. Um, I really like your nature theme because again, it's been so important in my healing. I've always appreciated camping. I loved when my kids were little. My kids are, for the most part, grown. I still have a 10-year-old, but the others are all in their 20s or pushing 20. And when they were real little, we'd go camping a lot. And so I've always loved the outdoors, but I never made the connection. And now that I made the connection with the outdoors, I want to be, if it's not too hot, I want to be out there. I want to be out there as much as I can, man. It's so healing. It's so like the perspective that you can get, the humility that you can get when you're standing next to the red rocks in Arizona or next to the Grand Canyon, or you're staring at a mountain in Denver, or outside of, in Colorado Springs. If you're at the beach in Florida, I mean, these things are so amazing and like awe-inspiring, and we're just a speck, not in a bad way, but there's so many things going on around us and all the connections that go with us. And the humility that comes with that, I think, is key in our recovery as well. And being grateful for the experience. I, I don't want to say that people take their lives for granted, but I know I sure did. And it's not even because I thought when I died, I'm going to go to this like special, awesome place that a lot of people refer to as heaven. It's not because I thought that, because I didn't think that, but I still took it for granted. Like I was just doing what I had been taught by others who really, I don't think ultimately were happy either, to go down this path and do this certain thing and not really pay attention to what I enjoyed and what I wanted to do. And of course, I still have to make money and I still work and do things to make money, but I'm very careful about what that is and what time that gets. And um, that's so crucial to me. And it's all part of the puzzle, I think.
You know, I talk to so many people during their grief journey or grief process where they had that eye-opening kind of moment. They've gone through life, you know, kind of just taking for granted the fact that people are there. And then whether they have to watch the final curtain or the final journey aspects of the journey play out, or it's sudden, they all come back with the same exact response. And that's they understand just how short and important life is because you only get one go around
Hmm.
within this body,
Hmm.
within the context of what you know for reality.
Hmm.
And you know, I've experienced it not only in the loss of loved ones, but I've also experienced it through the drastic life changing form of divorce, where
Hmm.
you've established this life with someone, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. In my case, it may have been a little bit more extreme, where homelessness and everything else came with that. But it was that eye opening moment, you know, sitting there in the mirror that night, that very first night, going, man, I've really taken this for granted and chased the wrong things here. I've got to do something new. And ultimately, there was some other bad, you know, difficult steps that came in along the way before I discovered the art of meditation. When I started actually actively participating in developing my own practice of meditation, I brought it out into the wilderness and it changed my perspective about how I engage in the world and how I fit into the world, let alone the actual role that I play in my life, you know, within the story that I'm living. I am that hero of that story. And you go through the trials and the tribulations, the defeats at the very beginning of when you set the tone or the intention to change paths because you need a reference point in order to carry you through as you develop and you grow and you face the difficult milestones along that road in order to get to that huge victory or whatever the case may be at the end of the journey.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And I think that's where we learn that it's about the journey, not the goal, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
absolutely.
and I, I really wrestle. I'm a very logical human being, and so I really wrestle with some of the aspects of things that even I practice and believe 100%. And that's to get a logical reason behind it. One of them is putting out positivity. When we put out positivity, positivity will come back. And when we put out negativity, negativity will come back. And I've tested this throughout my life. I lived on that negative side for some time and I got negative back. And when you look at it objectively and say, well, if you see a man walking down the street yelling at everybody and cussing and carrying on, calling people names, are you surprised when somebody stands up and slaps them or calls them a name back or cusses at them? Not at all. That's exactly what that man asked for, right? I mean, that's what we would say in our heads. The same is true. Just put distance between you and the man, and you're the man. And, when somebody helps a woman, an elderly woman across the street, when somebody sees that, they think positive things, both about that human being and what they want to do in their life. And it just spreads, and it's like, the butterfly effect. And it's because we're not conscious about it and we're not really appreciating the gift that is life, we're not even slowing down enough to think about it. And to slow down, just to take the campfire analogy, to slow down and enjoy a campfire. Of all the lessons that I learned, stopping to smell the roses or the campfire is the most important. And So you go, if I kind of devolve from that just to understand under that I need to appreciate the simplicity and the lack of pressure and the lack of stress and the lack of weight that all the things come with, right? Because we always want things. I want a bigger house. I want a nicer car. I wanted this. I wanted that. No, you don't. You really want peace and quiet and fulfilled to be feel fulfilled. You just think those things are going to get that for you. And if you can stop, I because of the extreme nature of the trauma I went through, it's like automatically no amount of anything is going to replace that. So we're going to have to go deeper, right? The dive's going to have to be deeper. And it's applicable in everything that I've gone through. And you say divorce, man, I think divorce is one of the more traumatic things that we go through. Some people maybe not, but some people very much so. And I totally get it. I mean, hell, I've been through it and it is awful. And the stuff that comes with it is awful. We're not prepared, even when it's the right thing to happen. My ex-wife and I have both had successes outside um, of our personal lives after divorcing that we would not have had. Like we were dragging each other down. So it was a positive but it wasn't positive for everybody, right? And the people that get affected negatively are people that you care about. And so it's just bad. And understanding so to get back to it's about the journey, understanding and appreciating the journey being the piece that is really that it's all about is to slow down and be like, I get, the hard things you're talking about and the kind of the things you've got to grind through to get to the milestones, to stop and be able to appreciate those instead of dreading them every step of the way it makes it more palatable. It puts things in perspective for you. Why am I doing this stuff? And it's because I'm trying to get here. I'm trying to have a better life. And so I had to learn. I said all that because I was coming back to having to learn to see a tool that I like to give people is to see perspective. So if we can change our perspective and see a positive in every situation, even one that is clearly negative, then you can change your life. Because when you open your mind's filter up, the reticular activating system, when you look it up, when you open it up to things because you're being positive and you're being open to these things, they will present themselves to you. Where if you were negative and shut down, they wouldn't have presented themselves. And so I had to look at that and be like, why is that happening? Like, it's not hocus pocus stuff. And that's when I found the RAS, the reticular activating system, which is the same thing. When you get a new car, you may be familiar with it, but in case people listening aren't, when you get a new car and all of a sudden you see that new car everywhere,
Yeah.
that's the reticular activating system. Before you bought the red Honda Accord, your brain was filtering out red Honda Accords because you didn't care because it wasn't part of your life and what you needed to know. So it just filtered it out. Now that it's part of your life, it is now it was always being picked up by our brains, but it wasn't being shown to our conscious selves. Well, when I figured that out, it that makes the perspective thing make sense, right? We open up that filter to see so much more when we're not just staring at how bad our lives are, how bad the circumstances are, how negative things are, and that's getting all our attention. It's just going to keep being that way. Turn that focus, turn that filter, change what you're letting in, change what the pipes. It's not all hot water. Let some cool water in there, and then you'll have warm water that you can take in. And so things that, when you say it on your face, like, man, just put positive energy out, positive energy comes back. I had to wrestle with that, because it didn't seem logical to me.
Yeah.
And so that whole kind of diatribe I just went on was to explain how I logically piece those pieces of this puzzle together.
Yeah, and it's like, and when I look back, not only on my journey, but I think about a lot of the people that I interact with and work with, is there's that willingness to become open to the perspective change, but there's a gap. In order to get there, I feel like you got to develop an understanding of what it is that you're looking for, as well as what it is that you're trying to do and the motivation behind it. When I think about it, I explain it and compare it a lot to the way that we learned how to walk. That's because through the process, going from sitting up to learning to walk, there was a little voice of hope that spoke to our hearts and told us that there was a really good outcome and a really good reward for taking that step. Then we got to that point where we started to try to walk and we fell down. And then we fell down. And we got up and we fell down again. But we kept on trying because it was still that purest sense of hope's voice that was speaking to our heart. And after we learned how to walk, we eventually went out in the world and we encountered life. And life came with the pitfalls, the pains, the traumas, the suffering aspect of it. And each one of those things began to silence that voice of hope, made it a little bit softer and a little bit harder to hear each time. And as we go on and we collect these things without letting them go, there becomes no space for that voice of hope to express itself. So if we take time to not only evaluate where we are in life, what it is we're really doing and why, but if we develop a practice of sitting with ourselves and evaluating each thing that's happened throughout the course of the day, we start to remove a little bit of that tartar from the pain and the trauma and that other side, that other face of life, giving room for hope to start to speak to us again. And that's really, I think, the fundamental moment when a true journey of healing or a journey of growth that's intended for success really begins.
Yeah. I, so you're talking to your analogy of learning to walk. I think when we're learning to walk as a, as a child, we don't have the bounds and limitations yet. We haven't learned, quote unquote, these limitations. And I say quote unquote just because we do learn them. We don't sit down in a schoolhouse and learn them from a book. We're taught by those who are around us. And it's a struggle, right? Because I mean, you want to tell a child we can't fly. It's a limitation we got. So if you jump off a building trying to fly, you're going to die, and I don't want you to die. So I'm going to tell you about that. And we start to set in these limiting things, and it shrinks down so much that we limit ourselves. And I'm not suggesting that we try to jump off buildings because we can actually fly. We've just been limited from doing so. I'm saying that it's that type of, well, it seems obvious in the moment what I'm doing is trying to keep my kid from jumping off of a building, but we're doing more than that. And because we don't know what we're doing, and the people who brought us up didn't know what they were doing, it's so much deeper than just don't jump off a building. And we don't think that we can do anything more, or that we can enjoy life. And so why do I keep getting up? Why do I stand back up? I fell this time and I'm not getting back up because I'm just gonna fall again. But the little me didn't have that. Little me was like, I'm gonna walk. I mean, damn, you can tell me what you want. I'm gonna get up and walk because I see everybody else walking around. I'm gonna do it too. And he doesn't have that limit. And limiting beliefs are really hard on us. And they cloud our judgment, and they prevent us from making some decisions at all. We won't even make a decision because of it. Why would I spend the time doing that when I'm just going to end up depressed still. I'm still going to be anxious. And that's where I think it's so important that we set our why. Why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? And as, and all these things are applicable to everybody. I just have chosen a path of helping men. So when I'm talking to men, often men won't look in the mirror and say, that's why I'm doing it, for that guy, because he deserves to be happy. He deserves to be fulfilled. He deserves to have a good life. We're not going to do that. We spend our lives trying to take care of other people, the people we love, whether it's a partner, whether it's a child, whether it's our parents, whether it's our employer. If we're the employee, if we're the employer, then it's taking care of the people that work for us, making sure their people eat. We're always taking care of somebody else. So if that's okay, Roger that, if that's what it needs to be, then find that and take and do it for that. Find that why. You're not helping your significant other, your child, your employer, your people who work for you. You're not helping any of those people if you're not helping yourself and you're not focusing on being healed. And so that's so when you set a good why, then when the grind gets tough, and because you mentioned meditation. Meditation is awesome. It's amazing. It's life changing. But when people go to just sit down and meditate, it does it. You know how long it takes to kind of figure out what's going on and what you're actually doing, and the muscles, quote unquote, that you're working and training during meditation practice. And so it can be discouraging in the beginning. And so, but the mind control that comes with one who meditates is so powerful, and it is life altering again. And the perspective thing, I know I said it's life altering. The meditation thing is life altering as well. And it's free to do. And there's enough stuff out there on the internet to train one to meditate. And there's different types of meditation that can get you the same results. I'm a big proponent of it myself, brother.
It's funny because when I look back at how I came into building a practice of meditation, there was not only was there limiting beliefs, but there was that self-suffering story, where you project what people are going to think, what their reaction is going to be. And I've always had that part of me that it's very easy to disconnect and disassociate and jump out into the wilderness and I'd be okay. So that's where I went with it and that's where it really took hold and I think those are the moments that I can accredit to really changing my life, and my the direction of my life because without being willing to sit and ask myself those hard questions like, hey, I know you want to do this, but the reality is you're not going to stick with it if you don't find a way that's going to suit you. So what does that look like? And for me, that just happened to look like grabbing a backpack and heading out into nature and just becoming one with the beautiful scenery around me. And then from there, I learned how to let go of that negative self suffering story. The one where we get caught up in why me? I'm the victim of everything, regardless of what it is that we're facing.
Hmm.
And as I let that go, that's where the hero journey really became authentic. It's really, really, really became me, and realizing that these are all just steps in the course. Everybody in my life that I say, poor me, they're not around anymore. The truth is, they were only intended to be there for so long.
Hmm.
And you have to accept the impermanence of the world. You can't get wrapped up in the safety of disassociating from the fact that each each little trail has an ending. We walk so far with somebody, and whether it's just we move in different directions or somebody's life comes to an end, they have to leave your story at one point or another. And when you start to really sit with that, have those difficult conversations with yourself around that, it changes the overall perspective and the overall way that you walk through the world. It doesn't build a mindset where you're just waiting for the other shoe to fall. Instead, you're building a mindset of, man, I'm glad this person is around for right now. As long as they're around right now in this moment, I'm going to make the most of it and I'm going to truly enjoy and not only get everything that I can out of the moment, but I'm going to give them everything that I can inside of that moment. And I feel like that is really what comes out of building that understanding through doing that kind of work.
Uh, yeah, man. Again, I'm agreeing. I'm totally agreeing. I think that everything that you just said, I'm in total agreement with that. I don't know. It's a the being able to understand what it is we're trying to do out here is so huge, and we get so wrapped up in the wrong thing, and we're not even enjoying, like you say, the cool things happening right here, right now. Maybe it's with somebody else. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's with somebody that's going to die eventually because we're all going to die. So whether they die figuratively or literally, I agree. It's going to end. Our life is a pattern, is full of patterns. It's one big pattern with a bunch of small patterns inside of it, and they're all running a cycle. And relationships come to end, um, whether we choose that or somebody else chooses that or life chooses that. And journeys shift courses. The more we learn about ourselves, like I don't know about you, man, but I know I what I think is a great night now. 15 years ago, I'd have told you it sounds like a miserable night. And I was a fool 15 years ago, if you let me tell it today. So it wasn't that I was um that I had to just fit something, well, these are my circumstances, so I have to fit into this. I mean, you have to fit into your circumstances. Like you say, you can be the victim of the story of the hero. The victim is always going to just lay there in their victimness. They're not going to ever be able to propel out of it. And it's so true. And so many people are actual victims, but even in that, it cannot be their story. They were a victim in a circumstance in their story, but the story that itself, they cannot be a victim because they're a hero. They have to embrace that. And I'm glad you put it that way because I think it is. And if you can look at yourself like a hero, the hero that you are, then you can respect the hero that you are. And then you can care for and love the hero that you are. And, uh, and because I know as a society, we're so big on the hero. If we are the hero, then we can respect it and we can love it and we can embrace it. And so I think that's a great way to put it.
And I think that's actually a lot of the nuts and bolts of it. I think that's a beautiful way to put the tools and the time that you have to invest in order to get to that stage, though. When you think about the way one person approaches something and you take their approach and you try it, it doesn't necessarily give you the same results because you're still trying to hide from yourself or kind of dodge the uncomfortable spaces. But by diving into those uncomfortable spaces, you're able to grow and you build that trust, that value and that self worth come back out. And if you watch any movie or really listen to any and look at any story, there's those kind of moments. At the beginning of that story, there's the moment where they face defeat and then they walk away from that with their head down, they doubt themselves, and then they go through this epic hour and a half of changing that perspective. It's never about, oh well, at the beginning I went into the battle with this sword and I lost because I had this weapon. At the end of the movie, I'll have a different weapon, so I'll come out on top.
Hmm.
It's about arming yourself. And Marcus Aurelius wrote this really beautiful quote in the Meditations about always striving to be the boxer as opposed to the swordsman. Because the boxer, he has all those tools, his weapons are in his hands. His physical hands are his weapons.
Hmm.
So if he's attacked, he can respond and he can do what needs to be done. The swordsman, on the other hand, his weapon is a sword and a shield. If he's attacked, he has to go find these weapons before he's able to defend himself.
Mhm.
So by becoming the boxer and learning how to tease out these traits or these weapons, these tools to help you along that portion of the discovery mode and the growth aspect of the hero story is really what you're getting at. And it's where the real bread and butter, it's where you make your own gravy with the story and with really what it is, that mission that you're on.
Yeah. Um, I think that understanding that piece was very difficult for me because I felt like it was um, sit back and strap on for what life's going to throw at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no control. There's a lot of things I don't have control over. And recognizing those things is crucial and is huge because I don't need to spend time and emotions on those things because I don't control them. But the things I can control are things that my limiting beliefs once prevented me from knowing and understanding that I controlled. And that's lately I've been bringing up the money thing a lot lately. I mean, obviously not just in this short conversation, but in my life, it's been coming up a lot lately because I believe that a lot of people hide their failures behind a thought that they don't and can't have money. And so they're going to continue to say, well, I'm not going to make this change because I'm still not going to have enough money to buy one of these expensive houses. You know, housing prices are through the roof now, as we all know. So I can't afford to buy those. Or I can't afford to go to the Titans game, or the football game I want to go to because I'm not going to have the money. And that's what I really like to do and going to football games really makes me happy. So I'm not going to do any of these things. And that's just a defeatist attitude. You're just defeated and you're going to be continued to be defeated as long as you see yourself as a defeated person. And you bring up being the boxer and versus the swordsman, and I think we should all become boxers and then become swordsmen and then become tank drivers and pilots, and we just layer that thing out because, like you say, we don't know what tool we're going to have available when the stuff hits the fan again. So let's learn all these things on the way out. And so all the things that I've discussed over the last half hour or so with perspective and gratitude and all that, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about making sure I know how to box and making sure I know how to use a sword and a shield and making sure I know because there's going to be so many things that come my way. If I can have some help, great. But if I got to do it with my bare knuckles, great. I'm ready for that too. And it's not easy to see in that moment. And I get that and I grasp it. But we're not going to find any type of success fiscally or physically. So, in physically, I mean emotional and all that too. We're not going to experience any type of success if we just look at it as a victim or as we're defeated or that person has something I don't have. They did something I can't do. And that with that, then you're not, there's going to be no progress. There's going to be no steps. Um, so learning these things it's been so huge for me and it's so hard to explain to people other than I'm no longer a tensed up ball of negative feelings. I'm now a relaxed, calm, um, human being that just is trying to enjoy as many things as possible. I have things in life that are not enjoyable, and I have struggles, and I have to figure out answers, a way to do it. But because I've learned a process, if there's a hurdle, you research how to overcome the hurdle. You see what the process is. You stick to completing the process until you've cleared the hurdle. If something, to your point that you made a second ago, if something doesn't work, evaluate. Is it a time thing? Is this something I need to give 3, 4, 6 months, a year before I bail on it? Or the research says, no, you should see immediate effects. Okay, roger that. Well, it didn't work immediately. Okay, we'll change it. My what helped, what was so big, and this goes back to your walking thing again, and it's been so big in my life because life's thrown some stuff at me. Um, Joel is the obvious one, and him passing away is just so clearly awful. But the other hurdles, you just got to keep getting up. Just keep getting up. And, if you're sick, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I'm tired of getting knocked down to get up and get knocked down again. So I don't want to get knocked down anymore because I'm sick of having to get up. So how can I change that? And all these things that kind of evolved into where I am today. It's, as I've learned, Mike, here late, I didn't notice what I was doing. I was going through. It was really a holistic wellness, and it's the healing and growing mentally, physically, and spiritually. And a lot of the mentally is not only sitting down with a therapist or going through EMDR therapy, it's the meditation, it's the breath work, it's knowing that the mental part of the physical exercise. So what I'd have to do to get up and go work out today, that willpower that I exerted, that fighting through to the 12th rep, that making sure that I complete the 5 mile hike, all that mental stuff, that is huge for when we're going through life and dealing with the heavy stuff that life's tossing at us, being able to say, no, I'm going to go through that 12th rep. I can quit after the 12th rep. I can quit after the 5th mile. I can quit. I just can't quit right now. And if you have that attitude and you can complete another day, wake up tomorrow. I don't want to quit tomorrow because I completed yesterday. I'll have 2 days in a row if I do today. And you get that ball rolling and you see some positive momentum and things start to grow. And man, we can really set ourselves free from these cages that we bind ourselves in. The world will bind us up in its own. We don't need to bind ourselves up. And man, we're good at it though. God, we're good at it as humans.
That's very true. It's one of those things that as you go through the process with the open heart and the open mind, you become more aware of where you're getting bind up or where you're prone to become bind up. So you're able to apply a little bit more energy, almost in the concept of living in or being in a survival situation out in the woods. First thing you do is you build your shelter so that way you can get out of the elements. Next thing you're looking at is you're looking at how to get a fire going. And then you're looking at how to secure food and water, all based off of the step that came before it. And if we go through and we take the time to, in our meditation practices or, journaling, whatever the case may be, honor those places that you've been. Look at them as something that's helped you to grow. And that's exactly what it'll do. It'll change the context around it. So it'll remove the shame, most of the pain, and all the other negative stigmas that you're projecting on your own existence so that you can see a little bit more clear step by step.
Mm-hmm.
But as we start to wind down here and as the fire's burning down, I want to give you a couple of minutes before we wrap things up to go ahead and do the self promotion thing. Let people know where they can get in touch with you, what you got going on, how you can work together, all that good stuff.
Yeah, right on, man. I sure appreciate it. So I've got a podcast myself, Guys Dealings with Feelings. You can find it on Apple and Spotify under that name. I'm on YouTube and Instagram under I2U Thrive. That's the letter I, the number two, the letter U, THRIVE. That's on YouTube and Instagram. And I've got group coaching programs I do. But just right now I'm trying to focus on getting the narrative around men discussing mental health to be good, positive, healthy, good things when it's seen instead of weakness. And because that's not what it is. It's misdefined. And so that's really where I'm putting a lot of my attention. So people can find me there. I'm at i2uthrive.com as well. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me at any of those platforms. You can comment, you can direct message me, any of those things to reach out. And I just encourage anybody who's going through anything tough to know how precious life is. Your life is precious. you're loved even if you don't know it, and to really just stay in the fight, man.
Well, Aaron, it's been amazing. It's been great to meet you and have this conversation. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And I look forward to catching up sometime soon.
Yeah, sure, man. It was great. Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks so much for your time.
Most definitely. I don't believe in goodbyes. So until we meet again, whether it's in this life or next time, have a good, safe journey.
You too, brother. Be safe out there.